I was sitting at my parents' dining table, pushing pot roast around my plate, when my brother Trevor dropped the bomb. Mom and Dad sat across from me, smiling like they'd won the lottery. Trevor leaned back in his chair, 32 years old and smug as ever, and announced, "Mom and Dad said I'm moving into your house next month." I set down my fork slowly, looked him straight in the eye, and replied, "Funny, I sold it last week." I reached into my purse and pulled out the signed sale documents, sliding them across the table. His face went completely white. Trevor snatched the papers like they were on fire, his fingers trembling as he scanned every line. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. My father's mouth fell open. The silence in that dining room was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. "What did you do?" Mom finally shrieked, her voice climbing 2 octaves. "Chelsea, what have you done?" I stayed calm. I'd practiced this moment in my head 1,000 times over the past 3 months. Ever since I'd overheard that phone conversation between Mom and Trevor, the one where they casually discussed how Trevor deserved my house because he was going through a rough patch. My house. The one I'd bought 5 years ago, after working 2 jobs, saving every penny, sacrificing vacations and new clothes and nights out with friends. The small 3-bedroom bungalow in a decent neighborhood that was my pride and joy. My proof that I could make it on my own without any help from this family. "I knew you were planning this," I said evenly, looking at all 3 of them. "I've known for months." Trevor's shock turned to rage. His face flushed red, and he slammed his fist on the table hard enough to make the water glasses jump. "You knew? You knew and you sold it anyway? That's my house." "Your house?" I couldn't help but laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Trevor, you've never paid a single bill in your life. You got fired from your job 6 months ago for showing up late every day and spending half your shift on your phone. You've been living in Mom and Dad's basement ever since, playing video games and ordering takeout on their credit card." "That's not fair," Mom interjected, her voice taking on that familiar wheedling tone she always used when defending Trevor. "He's been looking for work. The job market is terrible right now." "The job market is fine, Mom. Trevor just can't hold down a job because he thinks he's too good for actual work." I turned to my brother. "How many positions have you been fired from now? 7? 8? "You're such a selfish witch," Trevor spat. "Family is supposed to help family. I needed that house." "No, you wanted that house. There's a difference." I gathered my purse and stood up, and I worked for that house, every square foot of it. I wasn't going to let you 3 guilt me into handing it over, so Trevor could have a free place to live, while I paid his mortgage, utilities, and property taxes. My father finally spoke, his voice heavy with disappointment. "We raised you better than this, Chelsea. We raised you to care about family." "You raised me to be Trevor's backup plan," I corrected him. "The responsible one, the one who sacrifices so the golden child can have whatever he wants." "Well, not anymore. The new owners take possession in 2 weeks. It's done." I was halfway to the door when Trevor called out, "Wait!" Something in his voice made me turn around. He was smiling now, and that smile sent ice water down my spine. "You think you're so smart," he said slowly. "But that house had structural problems you didn't know about." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" "I had an inspector friend take a look a few months ago. Foundation issues, major ones. Water damage in the basement, cracks in the load-bearing walls." He pulled out his phone and started swiping through photos. "I've got it all documented. When those new buyers find out, they're going to sue you for everything you're worth. Non-disclosure of material defects. You'll lose everything." He turned his phone around. There were photos of foundation cracks, water-stained walls, crumbling concrete. My hands went numb. "You're lying," I whispered. "Am I?" He leaned forward, his smile widening. "I was going to tell you about the problems, help you fix them before you sold. But now? Now I think I'll just let those buyers discover it on their own. Their lawyer is going to eat you alive." Mom nodded sadly. "This is what happens when you put yourself before family, sweetheart. These are the consequences." I grabbed my coat and walked out, Trevor's laughter following me into the cold night air. My hands shook so badly I could barely get my key into my car's ignition. A lawsuit. Material defects. I could lose everything. The sale proceeds, my savings, everything I'd worked for, all because I'd tried to protect myself from them. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those photos Trevor had shown me. Foundation cracks spreading like spider webs, water damage, structural failure, a lawsuit that would bankrupt me. By the time the sun came up Monday morning, I'd bitten my nails down to nothing and consumed enough coffee to fuel a small army. At 8 o'clock sharp, I called Patricia, my real estate agent. She answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful and professional. That cheerfulness died the moment she heard the panic in my voice. "Slow down, Chelsea," she said. "What's wrong?" I explained everything. Trevor's photos, the alleged inspector's report, the threats of lawsuits. By the time I finished, I was crying, which I hated because I'd promised myself I wouldn't cry over this family anymore. "Meet me at my office in an hour," Patricia said firmly. "And don't panic. We're going to figure this out." 57 minutes later, I was sitting in Patricia's office, watching her dial a number on her phone. "I'm calling Douglas," she explained. "He's the inspector who did your pre-sale inspection. If there were problems, he would have found them." Douglas arrived 30 minutes later. A compact man in his 50s, with sharp eyes, and a no-nonsense demeanor. Patricia showed him Trevor's photos on my phone. He studied each one carefully, zooming in, tilting the screen to catch the light. Then he started laughing. "These aren't photos of your house," he said, handing my phone back. "What?" I grabbed the phone, staring at the images. "Look at the basement. Your house has concrete floors with that gray epoxy coating, remember? This basement has old linoleum tiles, the kind they stopped making in the 90s. And these walls are cinder block. Your basement walls are poured concrete. This isn't even the same type of construction." I looked closer. He was right. How had I not noticed? But I'd been so scared, so panicked, that I hadn't really looked. I'd just seen foundation cracks and assumed the worst. "Your brother used photos from a different property," Douglas continued. "Probably found them online or used pictures from some other house. It was a complete bluff." The relief hit me so hard I thought I might pass out. Then the relief transformed into white-hot anger. Trevor had terrorized me, made me believe I was about to lose everything, just to punish me for protecting my own property. He'd tried to fraud me with fake evidence. "I'm going to kill him," I muttered. "Don't," Patricia advised. "But maybe it's time to confront him with the truth." I drove to my parents' house, Douglas's inspection report clutched in my hand. Trevor answered the door in sweatpants and a stained t-shirt, clearly just rolled out of bed at 2 in the afternoon. "Come to apologize?" he asked smugly. "Come to call you out for fraud," I replied, pushing past him into the house. Mom and Dad were in the living room, watching television. They looked up, surprised to see me. I held up my phone, showing Trevor's photos side by side with Douglas's actual inspection photos. "These aren't pictures of my house. The basement flooring is different. The walls are different. The whole structure is different. You tried to scare me with fake evidence." Trevor's smirk faltered for just a second, then returned. "Okay, fine. It was a joke. Can't you take a joke, sis? I was just trying to teach you a lesson about family loyalty." "A joke? You tried to make me believe I was about to be sued for hundreds of thousands of dollars?" Mom stood up, her face pinched with irritation. "Chelsea, your brother was just playing around. You're always so dramatic. You take everything so seriously. He committed fraud." "Oh, don't be ridiculous," Dad said, waving his hand dismissively. "Nobody committed fraud. He showed you some pictures. Big deal. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I stared at them, at their casual dismissal of what Trevor had done, at how quickly they rushed to defend him. This was my whole childhood in a nutshell. Trevor could do anything, and they'd excuse it. I could do everything right, and it would never be enough. "I want an apology," I said quietly. Trevor laughed. "For what? For trying to teach you about priorities? You're not getting an apology from me." I turned to leave, but Trevor's voice stopped me at the door. "Actually, Chelsea, before you go, there's something you should know." He walked over to the dining room table and picked up a manila folder. "I filed a lawsuit against you last week. You're being served tomorrow, but I figured I'd give you a heads up. Family courtesy and all." My blood turned to ice. "What lawsuit?" "Breach of oral contract and promissory estoppel." He opened the folder, showing me official legal documents bearing the county court's seal. "See, 2 years ago, at Thanksgiving, you told me I could have your house when you were ready to move. We had witnesses. Mom and Dad heard you say it. You made a promise, and I relied on that promise to my detriment. I turned down other housing opportunities because I believed your house would be mine. And now, you've sold it, without honoring your commitment." "I never said that. That's a complete lie. That's not what Mom and Dad will testify to in court." He smiled. "We all remember that conversation very clearly. You promised me that house, and then you broke your promise. I'm suing for monetary damages equivalent to the house's value. $350,000. I looked at my parents. They both nodded solemnly. It's true, Mom said softly. You did say that, honey, at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. I remember because I thought it was so generous of you. We'll testify to that in court, Dad added. We have to tell the truth. They were going to commit perjury. For Trevor. They were going to stand in front of a judge and lie under oath to help him steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from me. Even if you win, Trevor continued, clearly enjoying himself, the legal fees will destroy you. A case like this could cost you $50,000 or more just to defend. And it'll drag on for a year, maybe longer. Discovery, depositions, motions, trial. Every step costs money. Can you afford that, Chelsea? Can you afford to fight your own family in court? I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up completely. I looked at the three of them, my mother and father and brother, and realized I was looking at strangers. Strangers who were willing to destroy me financially to benefit Trevor. Think about it, Trevor said cheerfully as I stumbled toward the door. We're family. We can work this out. You just need to be reasonable. I made it to my car before I started shaking. Made it home before I started crying. And I cried for a long time, sitting on my apartment floor, holding that lawsuit in my hands, understanding that I was about to fight the biggest battle of my life, and I was completely alone. 2 weeks crawled by like 2 years. I hired a lawyer named Bradley, a stern man in his 40s who specialized in contract disputes. His retainer cost me $10,000, which I paid from my dwindling savings from the house sale. He reviewed Trevor's lawsuit and my story, then delivered the news with professional detachment. The case is weak, he said. Oral contracts for real estate are difficult to enforce, especially without documentation, but we still have to defend it properly. Discovery will be expensive. If this goes to trial, you're looking at total costs between $40,000 and $60,000. $40,000 to $60,000, just to defend myself against a lie. I felt sick. But the lawsuit wasn't my only problem. 3 days after hiring Bradley, my boss Donna called me into her office at the tech company where I worked as a marketing coordinator. Her face was grave. Chelsea, I need to talk to you about something serious. She turned her computer monitor toward me. On the screen was an email sent to HR and several company executives claiming that I'd been embezzling company funds. The email was anonymous, but it included what appeared to be bank statements showing transfers from company accounts to my personal account. The statements were obvious forgeries. Anyone with half a brain could see that, but they looked official enough to require investigation. This is fake, I said immediately. I've never stolen anything from this company. I believe you, Donna said, and I could hear the sincerity in her voice. But HR doesn't have a choice. They have to investigate. Until they do, I'm required to suspend you without pay. I'm sorry, Chelsea. My hands are tied. Without pay. I couldn't pay Bradley without income. Couldn't pay my rent. Couldn't afford groceries. My savings were disappearing fast, eaten up by lawyer fees and moving costs and security deposits. I'd gotten maybe $50,000 from the house sale after closing costs and real estate fees, and I'd already spent $15,000 of it. I went home and did something I wasn't proud of. I hacked into Trevor's email. It wasn't hard. Trevor had been using the same password for everything since high school, and I'd helped him set up his email account years ago. Within minutes, I was reading his messages, and what I found confirmed my worst fears. There, in his sent folder, was the email to my company's HR department. He'd sent it from a temporary email account, but he'd drafted it first in his regular email, and he'd forgotten to delete the draft. The forgery was clumsy, obviously created in basic photo editing software, but it was enough to trigger an investigation. But that wasn't all. I found other drafts, emails he was planning to send to my landlord, claiming I was running an illegal business from my apartment, emails to my car insurance company, claiming I'd lied on my application, emails to my credit card companies, disputing charges as fraudulent to destroy my credit score. A coordinated campaign to annihilate every aspect of my life. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to myself, then logged out before Trevor noticed someone had accessed his account. I called Bradley immediately, but his response deflated me. This is good evidence, but you obtained it illegally, he said. I can't use emails you accessed without authorization, even if you know his password. It's inadmissible in court and could actually get you in trouble. So there's nothing I can do? Document everything else. Save every communication. But we can't use hacked emails. That night, my mother showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't open the door, but she kept knocking. kept calling my name through the wood. Finally, I let her in. "Chelsea, honey, we need to talk." She sat down on my couch without being invited. "This has gone too far. Your father and I, we just want peace in this family. Then tell Trevor to drop the lawsuit. We want to propose a compromise." She folded her hands in her lap, the picture of maternal concern. "If you give Trevor $200,000, half of what you got from selling the house, he'll drop everything. The lawsuit, all of it. We can all move forward." "I don't have $200,000, Mom. I have maybe $35,000 left after legal fees and living expenses." "Then borrow it. Take out a loan. Use your retirement fund. There are options." I stared at her. "You want me to go into debt for $200,000 to pay off your son's fraudulent lawsuit? It's not fraud if you actually promised him the house." "I never promised him anything. You know I didn't. You're planning to lie under oath." She looked away, and in that moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. Shame. Just a flicker, quickly buried, but it was there. "Trevor needs this, Chelsea. He's falling apart. He's depressed. He barely eats. This lawsuit, it's giving him purpose. If you take that away, I don't know what he'll do. So I'm supposed to financially destroy myself to give Trevor purpose? You're supposed to help your family." Her voice rose, that familiar edge of hysteria creeping in. "We gave you life. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. You owe us." "I don't owe you $200,000. Mom stood up abruptly. "Fine. Then I guess you should know that I took some things from your old house before you sold it. I had a key, remember? I used to water your plants when you traveled." My heart stopped. "What things?" "Your boxes from the garage. The ones with your childhood photos. Your grandmother's things. They're in a storage unit. My grandmother had raised me as much as my parents had. She died when I was 16, and her belongings were all I had left of her. Photos of us together. Her jewelry. Letters she'd written me. Irreplaceably memories." "The storage unit fees haven't been paid," Mom continued, her voice cold now. "It goes to auction in 1 week if the $5,000 delinquent balance isn't cleared. I guess someone forgot to pay. You're holding my memories hostage? I'm trying to make you see reason. Pay Trevor what he deserves, and I'll give you the storage unit number and pay the fees. Or don't, and lose everything your grandmother left you. Your choice." She walked out, leaving me standing in my empty apartment, the walls closing in around me. Trevor was suing me for $350,000. I had no income. My reputation was being systematically destroyed. And now my family was threatening to let my grandmother's belongings be sold to strangers unless I paid them off. I had 72 hours to come up with $5,000 for the storage unit, or lose the only tangible memories I had of the woman who'd actually loved me. I had maybe $35,000 left to my name. Bradley needed another $15,000 to continue my defense. The rent was due in 2 weeks. I was unemployed, and I was completely, utterly alone. For the first time since this nightmare began, I truly considered giving up. Just signing over what little money I had left, and walking away. Starting over somewhere else, somewhere far from this family and this city and these memories. But then I thought about my grandmother, about the last thing she'd said to me before she died. She'd gripped my hand, her fingers thin and weak, and whispered, "Never let anyone make you smaller, Chelsea. Not even family." I wouldn't let them make me smaller. Even if it destroyed me, I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I scraped together $5,000 from my savings, leaving me with about $30,000 total. Drove to the storage facility on the south side of town with cash in hand, my heart pounding. The facility was old and run down, rows of orange metal units stretching out like rusty dominoes. I found the office, a cramped room with a bored clerk behind plexiglass. "Unit 217, I said. "I'm here to pay the fees." The clerk checked her computer, then frowned. "That unit was cleared out 2 days ago." "What?" "No, the auction is in a week." Auction got cancelled. Someone came in with authorization to remove items, signed all the paperwork. Took about 6 boxes. Who authorized that?" She turned her screen toward me. The signature was messy, barely legible, but I could make out Trevor's name. He'd forged authorization documents, claimed to be me, and stolen my grandmother's belongings. I drove back to the facility's rows of units in a daze, found 217, and saw the empty space where my life should have been. A few scattered papers, some bubble wrap, but everything valuable was gone. My grandmother's jewelry, the photos, the letters, gone. I sat down right there on the cold concrete among the trash and the dust, and I broke, really, truly broke. Not angry crying or frustrated crying, but the kind of deep, soul-crushing sobs that come from somewhere ancient and wounded. I called Patricia because I didn't know who else to call, and she came. Drove across town and found me sitting in that empty storage unit, and she didn't say anything at first. Just sat down next to me and put her arm around my shoulders while I cried. He took everything, I finally managed. He took my grandmother's things, the only things I had left of her. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Chelsea, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully." I wiped my eyes, looked at her. "When you sold your house, I didn't just match you with a random buyer. I specifically asked someone to buy it. My brother-in-law, Harold." "I don't understand." "I'd been watching your situation for a while. Little comments you'd made about your family, things that didn't add up. When you told me you needed to sell quickly because of family pressure, I got suspicious, so I talked to Harold. He's a retired attorney who specializes in fraud cases. He agreed to buy your house to help protect you, and he's been documenting everything that's happened since." My brain struggled to process this. "What do you mean, documenting?" "The storage unit theft was caught on security cameras. Harold subpoenaed the footage yesterday. Trevor is on video, clear as day, taking your property without authorization. That's felony theft in this state. And Harold traced the IP address from that HR email back to Trevor's computer at your parents' house. He's been building a case." "A case for what?" "To destroy them legally." Patricia pulled out her phone, showed me photos, security footage timestamps, IP address logs, email metadata, but he needs one more thing. He needs Trevor to confess on tape, to admit to the fake inspector report, the fraudulent lawsuit, the HR complaint, the theft, everything. He'll never confess. He will if he thinks he's won. Harold's idea is this. You text Trevor, tell him he's won. Say you'll give him money. Set up a meeting in a public place, somewhere safe. We'll wire you with a recording device. Get him talking. Get him to brag. People like Trevor, they can't help themselves once they think they've broken you. It was risky, dangerous even. But what choice did I have? What if the recording doesn't work? What if he doesn't say enough? Then we're no worse off than we are now. But if it works, we end this. Completely. I thought about my grandmother. Thought about what she'd want me to do. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." We planned it for 2 days later, giving me time to compose myself and make it convincing. I texted Trevor from my apartment, Patricia and Harold reading over my shoulder. "You win. I can't fight anymore. Let's meet. I'll give you the money." Trevor's response came in under a minute. "Smart choice, sis. Washington Park, near the fountain. 3 o'clock tomorrow. Come alone." Harold showed up at my apartment the next morning with professional recording equipment. A small microphone that clipped inside my collar, nearly invisible. A backup recorder in my purse. He spent an hour coaching me on what to say, what questions to ask, how to get Trevor talking. "You need him to admit to specifics," Harold explained. "The fake inspector photos, the fraudulent lawsuit, the HR email, the storage theft. Get him to brag about it all. Can you do that?" I nodded, though my hands were shaking. Patricia squeezed my shoulder. "You're braver than you know." The next afternoon, I drove to Washington Park, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Harold and Patricia followed in a separate car, parking 50 yards away. They'd be close enough to help if something went wrong, but far enough not to spook Trevor. The park was nearly empty on this cold Wednesday afternoon. Just a few joggers, a woman walking her dog, and Trevor, sitting on a bench near the fountain with that same smug smile he'd worn at dinner all those weeks ago. Trevor stood up when he saw me approach, spreading his arms wide like we were meeting for a friendly chat. "Chelsea, good to see you finally came to your senses." I forced myself to look defeated, slumping my shoulders, avoiding his eyes. Harold had coached me on body language. Make him feel powerful. Make him think he's won. "I can't do this anymore," I said quietly, sitting down on the bench. "The legal fees are killing me. I lost my job. I just want this to end." "Well, it can end." Trevor sat down next to me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "You give me what I asked for, and we're done. Fresh start for everyone. I'll give you $100,000, that's all I have left." Trevor laughed, actually laughed out loud. "100,000? Chelsea, we agreed on 200,000. That was Mom's very generous compromise. I don't have 200,000. After legal fees and living expenses, I have 100,000 and some change. It's everything I have left from selling the house. Then I guess you'll need to find another 100,000 somewhere. He leaned back, completely relaxed. Take out a loan. Ask friends. I don't care how you get it. This was the opening Harold had told me to watch for. Trevor, why are you doing this? I'm your sister. Because you needed to learn a lesson. His voice was cold now, the friendly facade dropping away. You always thought you were better than me. Miss Responsible, Miss Independent. Working your 2 jobs, buying your little house, acting like you did it all yourself. Meanwhile, I'm struggling, and you don't even care. I worked hard for that house. So what? I'm family. You should have just given it to me when I needed it. But no, you had to be selfish. So now you're going to pay. Literally. What about the inspector report? I asked, keeping my voice small. The foundation problems. Were those real? Trevor grinned. God, you actually believe that? I found those photos on some real estate disaster website. Took me like 5 minutes. Your face when you saw them, though. That was priceless. You really thought you were going to get sued into oblivion. And the lawsuit now? The promissory estoppel thing? That's not fake. That's very real. Of course, you never actually promised me the house. But Mom and Dad will swear you did. And who's a judge going to believe? 3 family members or 1 bitter daughter who sold her house to spite her own brother. What about my job? The HR complaint? Trevor's grin widened. Oh, that. Yeah, that was me too. Photoshopped some bank statements, made it look like you were skimming funds. Sent it anonymously. Pretty clever, right? And even better, they suspended you without pay. I knew they would. Corporate policy and all that. My hands were clenched in my lap, nails digging into my palms. The wire was recording everything, every confession, every admission of fraud. I just needed him to keep talking. What about the storage unit? My grandmother's things? Yeah, I took those. He shrugged like it was nothing. Figured it would be extra motivation for you to pay up. Plus, I sold some of the jewelry already. Got about $3,000 for it. Not bad. You sold my grandmother's jewelry. My voice cracked, and I wasn't acting anymore. Real anguish bled through. It's just stuff, Chelsea. You're too sentimental. Besides, you should have thought about that before you crossed me. I'm not done either. If you don't pay me the full $200,000, I'm going to keep making your life hell. More emails to employers, complaints to your landlord, posts on social media. I'll destroy your reputation so thoroughly you'll never work again. I'll make sure you end up homeless and broke, begging me for help. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. And you know what the best part is? Mom and Dad will support me through all of it. Because they know I'm the one who deserves their help. Not you. Me. I had everything I needed. Every confession, every admission, every threat. Harold would have more than enough to bury Trevor. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was sick. You always thought you were better than me, Trevor continued, standing up now, looking down at me with contempt. But you're not. You're just the one who got lucky. And now your luck's run out. He started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and Chelsea, don't think about recording this conversation or anything stupid like that. It's your word against mine. Nobody's going to believe you. As Trevor disappeared down the park path, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and texted Harold. Got it all. The response came immediately. Stay there, we're coming. Patricia and Harold appeared within minutes, finding me still sitting on that bench, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, but of rage and disgust and exhaustion. Did it work? I asked. Harold sat down next to me, his face grim. He pulled out his phone, pressed a few buttons, then closed his eyes and swore under his breath. The recording equipment malfunctioned. My stomach dropped. What? The primary recorder's battery died halfway through the conversation. I don't know how. I charged it fully this morning, checked it twice. But it's dead. We only got the first part, before he started confessing to the serious crimes. What about the backup recorder in my purse? Patricia picked up my purse from the bench, opened it, pulled out the small device. She pressed play. We heard my voice, muffled and distant, barely audible. Then Trevor's voice, even fainter. The fabric of the purse had blocked most of the sound. The recording was useless. No, I whispered. No. He confessed to everything. He admitted it all. The fraud, the theft, the fake inspector report, everything. I believe you, Harold said. But without a usable recording, we can't prove it. It's still your word against his. I'd gotten everything we needed. and it meant nothing. The equipment had failed. My one chance to end this nightmare, and I'd failed. That night, the final blow came. I logged into my social media accounts and found them flooded with posts I hadn't made. Racist statements. Admissions of theft from previous employers. Claims I'd used drugs at work. Posts about illegal activities. All of them tagged with my company's name, my professional contacts, people I'd gone to college with. My phone exploded with messages. Shocked friends asking if I'd been hacked. Former colleagues saying they were disappointed in me. My boss's assistant sending a formal termination letter, fired for cause based on the social media posts, and the ongoing embezzlement investigation. No severance, no unemployment benefits, nothing. I tried to delete the posts, but they kept reappearing. Jenna. I realized with horror that Trevor must have given Jenna access to my accounts. We'd shared passwords years ago, back when we were best friends, and I'd never changed them. She was posting from backup accounts, maybe even from a script that automatically reposted as soon as I deleted. My professional reputation was destroyed. My personal reputation was in tatters. Old friends were blocking me. My career in marketing was over. Who would hire someone with a Google search full of racist rants and theft accusations? I sat in my dark apartment, staring at my phone, as more and more hateful posts appeared under my name. And I finally understood what Trevor had meant when he said he'd make me homeless and broke. This was systematic destruction, and I had no way to stop it. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. My landlord had received an anonymous complaint about illegal activities in my unit. My car insurance company was investigating fraud on my application. My credit card company had flagged multiple charges as disputed. Every aspect of my life that could be attacked was being attacked simultaneously. I had $3,000 left in my bank account. No job. A court date in 6 weeks for Trevor's fraudulent lawsuit. No lawyer because I couldn't pay Bradley's fees anymore. And a social media presence that made me look like a racist, thieving, drug-addicted liar. I called Patricia, the only person who still believed me, and broke down completely. I can't do this anymore. He's won. Trevor's won. Don't say that. It's true. Look at what he's done. My life is over. Everything I worked for is gone. My reputation, my job, my savings, my home. He's taken it all, and I can't even prove what he did because the recording equipment failed. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Let me call Harold." An hour later, I was sitting in Harold's home office, a converted bedroom in his modest ranch house. He looked tired, older than his 50-some years, and when he spoke, his voice was heavy with regret. "I'm sorry the recording failed, Chelsea. That's on me. I should have used better equipment, had more backups. It doesn't matter anymore. It's over." "It's not over." Harold pulled out a thick folder. "I've been building a case against your brother and your parents for weeks. I have the security footage from the storage facility showing Trevor taking your property. I have the IP address records showing the HR complaint came from your parents' house. I have forensic analysis of the social media posts showing they originated from accounts belonging to Jenna. I have documentation of the fake inspector photos. I have everything except Trevor's confession. So what good is any of it without the confession? We use it as leverage. Trevor doesn't know the recording failed. He thinks we have him admitting to everything on tape. We set up one final meeting. Your parents, Trevor, and if possible, Jenna. We confront them with the evidence we do have. We bluff about the recording, and we force them into a corner. They'll never confess. They'll lawyer up. Maybe. But people panic when they're cornered. They make mistakes. And this time, we'll have the meeting here, in my office. I have security cameras everywhere, all clearly visible and disclosed. Whatever happens in that room will be legally recorded. If they confess to anything, if they threaten you, if they reveal anything incriminating, we'll have it. And if they don't?" Harold leaned back in his chair. "Then we go to trial with what we have, and we hope it's enough. But I think they'll break. Bullies usually do when someone stands up to them properly." I had nothing left to lose. "Okay, set up the meeting." I spent the next day preparing. I gathered every piece of evidence I had. Financial records showing I'd bought the house entirely with my own money, proving Trevor had contributed nothing. Old text messages from Jenna from when we were friends, showing there was no way I would have written those racist posts. Documentation of every job Trevor had been fired from. Character references from former employers who could vouch for my integrity. I wrote down everything that had happened, every detail, in chronological order, printed it out, highlighted key points. I wasn't going into that meeting unprepared. Harold sent an email to my parents. Family meeting. My office. Tomorrow at 2. Final offer to resolve everything. Come or face criminal charges. My mother called within an hour, her voice tight with false sweetness. Chelsea, honey, what's this about criminal charges? That's a very serious accusation. Come to the meeting and find out. Is Trevor invited? He's required. And what about his friend Jenna? My heart stopped. What about her? Oh, you know, Jenna. She's been spending a lot of time with Trevor lately. They've become quite close. She might want to be there to support him. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my mind racing. Jenna and Trevor? But Jenna was my best friend. Had been my best friend for 8 years. Since college. We'd been roommates, confidants, each other's emergency contacts. I called Jenna's number. It rang once, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. A third time. Finally, she answered. What do you want, Chelsea? Are you with Trevor? She laughed, and it was a sound I'd never heard from her before. Cold and mocking. You're just figuring that out now? God, you really are oblivious. Jenna, what are you talking about? Trevor and I have been together for 3 months. Since right before you sold your house. He told me everything you did to him, how you betrayed your own family. And I realized you've always been like that. Selfish. Thinking you're better than everyone else. I never thought I was better than anyone. You're my best friend. I was never your friend. Her voice was venom. I was the person you kept around to make yourself feel generous. Poor Jenna who didn't go to grad school. Poor Jenna who works in retail. Poor Jenna who never bought a house. You loved having someone to feel superior to. That's not true. I never felt that way. Whatever helps you sleep at night. But you should know, I'm the one who's been posting on your social media. Trevor gave me your passwords. I'm the one who sent your boss those fake bank statements. I helped him plan all of it. And you know what? It felt good. Really good. She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, the world tilting sideways. My best friend. 8 years of friendship, and it had all been a lie. Or maybe it had been real once, and jealousy had poisoned it. I'd never know. But now I understood why my passwords hadn't worked, why the posts kept reappearing. Jenna had changed my passwords. She had complete control of my accounts. And she was using that control to destroy everything I'd built. The meeting was tomorrow. My entire family would be there, plus the woman I'd thought was my closest friend, all united in their mission to tear me down. And all I had was a folder of evidence and the hope that Harold's cameras would catch them making a mistake. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat up watching the clock, waiting for 2 o'clock to arrive, knowing that tomorrow would either save me or finish what Trevor had started. The conference room in Harold's office was smaller than I expected, with plain white walls and a long table surrounded by chairs. Security cameras were mounted in every corner, clearly visible, their red recording lights blinking steadily. Harold had made sure everyone would know they were being filmed. Trevor arrived first, dressed in slacks and a button-down shirt, looking more put together than I'd seen him in months. Mom and Dad came next, both wearing expressions of long-suffering patience, like they were the victims in all of this. And finally, Jenna appeared in the doorway, her arm linked through Trevor's, both of them smiling. Well, this is cozy, Trevor said, taking a seat across from me. What's this all about, sis? Ready to finally do the right thing? Harold stood at the head of the table, commanding the room. Everyone sit down. We have a lot to discuss. Once everyone was seated, Harold opened his folder and began laying out documents. Security footage screenshots showing Trevor at the storage facility. IP address logs from the HR email. Forensic reports on the social media posts. Bank records. Everything. These documents prove a pattern of fraud, theft, harassment, and conspiracy, Harold said calmly. Trevor, you stole property from a storage facility. You filed a fraudulent lawsuit claiming an oral contract that never existed. You sent defamatory emails to Chelsea's employer using forged documents. And Jenna, you've been committing identity theft by accessing and posting from Chelsea's social media accounts without authorization. Trevor barely glanced at the documents. So what? You can't prove any of that was me. Actually, I can. The storage facility has security footage with timestamps. The HR email was traced back to your parents' house, where you were living at the time. And the social media posts originated from devices registered to Jenna. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across Trevor's face. But Jenna just shrugged. Prove it in court, she said. I plan to. But that's not all. Harold pulled out another document, the one he'd been saving. I also have a recording of Trevor, made 2 days ago in Washington Park, where he confessed to everything. The fake inspector report, the fraudulent lawsuit, the theft, the HR complaint, all of it. That got their attention. Trevor went pale. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad leaned forward, squinting at Harold like he could determine if this was a bluff through sheer intensity. You're lying, Trevor said, but his voice wavered. Am I? Would you like me to play it for you? The silence in that room was absolute. I watched them, these people I'd once called family, watched them realize that maybe, just maybe, they'd been caught. Then something unexpected happened. Dad spoke. How much? He asked quietly. Excuse me? Harold replied. How much to make this go away? To not file criminal charges? To drop everything? Dad pulled out his checkbook. 10,000? 20? What's your price? This isn't about money, Mr. Gary. Everything's about money. Name your price. But Trevor interrupted, his voice rising with panic. We need to hear the recording. I want proof you actually have it. Harold smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. I'll do you one better. I'll tell you exactly what you said. He began reciting, word for word, Trevor's confession from the park. The fake photos he'd found online, the photoshopped bank statements, the storage unit theft, the $3,000 he'd gotten from selling my grandmother's jewelry, the plan to continue destroying my reputation until I was homeless. With every sentence, Trevor's face grew paler. Harold couldn't possibly know these details unless he'd actually heard the conversation. The bluff was working. Stop, Mom finally said, her voice breaking. Just stop, please. Why should I? Harold asked. Because we'll do whatever you want. We'll drop the lawsuit. We'll pay restitution. Just don't file criminal charges against our son. What about Jenna? Jenna stood up suddenly, knocking her chair backward. I didn't do anything. Trevor asked me to post some things. I didn't know it was illegal. Identity theft is a federal crime, Harold said. As is computer fraud. You accessed accounts without authorization and used them to defame and harass. That's 3 to 7 years in federal prison if convicted. She sat back down, and for the first time since walking into this room, looked scared. Then Harold did something I didn't expect. He revealed his badge. Federal agent credentials, still valid despite his supposed retirement. I'm not actually retired, he explained. I specialize in investigating family fraud, elder abuse, and financial manipulation within domestic relationships. Patricia reported your case to me 2 months ago as a potential federal matter. Everything that's happened since has been part of a federal investigation. The room erupted. Trevor started shouting about entrapment. Mom started crying. Dad demanded a lawyer. Jenna looked like she might be sick. Harold let them panic for a moment, then held up his hand for silence. Here's what's going to happen. You have one chance, right now, to avoid criminal prosecution. Trevor, you will immediately drop your lawsuit. You will return all of Chelsea's property that you stole from the storage unit. You and Jenna will pay $50,000 in restitution to Chelsea for the damage you've caused. Your parents will pay an additional $20,000 for their role in planning perjury and enabling this fraud. All of you will issue public statements on social media, clearing Chelsea's name and admitting your actions. You will agree to restraining orders keeping you away from Chelsea for 5 years. And you will all complete 3 years of supervised probation and 200 hours of community service. And if we refuse? Trevor asked. Then I file federal charges. Wire fraud because the HR complaint crossed state lines via the internet. Theft. Conspiracy. Identity theft. Attempted extortion. Your parents face obstruction charges for planning to commit perjury. Trevor, you're looking at 5 to 10 years in federal prison. Jenna, 3 to 7. Your parents, up to 5 years. Plus massive fine. Your choice. The fight went out of them like air from a punctured tire. Trevor's shoulders sagged. Mom sobbed into her hands. Dad's checkbook lay forgotten on the table. And Jenna stared at the wall, her face completely blank. We'll take the deal, Dad finally said. The paperwork took 3 hours. Agreements signed, restraining orders processed, restitution payments arranged. Harold had everything prepared in advance, like he'd known exactly how this would end. Maybe he had. Trevor left without looking at me, Mom and Dad right behind him. But Jenna stopped at the door, turned back. I really did hate you, she said quietly. Not at first, but eventually. You made everything look so easy. It wasn't easy, I replied. I just didn't complain about it. She left. The door closed. And I was alone with Harold and Patricia, the weight of months of terror finally lifting from my shoulders. The aftermath took weeks to fully unfold. My employer investigated, discovered the truth, offered me my job back with a promotion to marketing director and back pay for the weeks I'd been suspended. I declined. I'd already accepted a position at a better company, one where nobody knew about the scandal, where I could start fresh. The social media posts were deleted, replaced with statements from Trevor and Jenna, admitting they'd hacked my accounts. My reputation was slowly rebuilt. Old friends reached out to apologize. New opportunities appeared. Trevor moved out of state as part of his probation agreement. Last I heard, he was working at a car wash, living in a studio apartment, paying off his restitution in monthly installments. Mom and Dad were humiliated in their community. Their church friends stopped calling. Their neighbors whispered. They'd enabled a criminal and nearly destroyed their own daughter, and everyone knew it. Jenna lost her job, her apartment, her social circle. Turns out identity theft and defamation don't look good on a background check. I used the restitution money as a down payment on a new house, bigger and better than my first one. Started dating Patricia's nephew, a kind man who worked as a teacher and thought my survival story was inspiring rather than damaged. Built new friendships with people who actually valued me. And I kept my grandmother's jewelry, recovered from the pawn shop where Trevor had sold it. I had it appraised and discovered some pieces were worth far more than he'd gotten for them. Now they sit in a safe in my bedroom, a reminder that some things are irreplaceable, and some battles are worth fighting no matter the cost. Looking back, I realize my grandmother was right. You can't let people make you smaller, even when they're family. Especially when they're family. Because real family doesn't destroy you to benefit themselves. Real family doesn't hold your memories hostage, or steal your identity, or try to bankrupt you with fraudulent lawsuits. Real family supports you, protects you, celebrates your successes instead of resenting them. I found my real family in Patricia, who saw through my situation and helped me. In Harold, who used his skills to protect someone he'd never met. In my new boyfriend, who listened to my story without judgment. In my new coworkers, who valued my skills and ethics. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stand beside you when blood relatives are trying to tear you down. A year after that final meeting in Harold's office, I hosted a dinner party in my new house. Patricia and her husband, Harold and his wife, my boyfriend, a few friends from work. We laughed and ate and celebrated the simple joy of being surrounded by people who genuinely cared. My phone rang during dinner. Trevor's number. I let it go to voicemail, then blocked him, again. He called every few months, always from a new number, always wanting something. Money, forgiveness, a chance to explain. I never answered. I'd learned the hardest lesson life can teach. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you're supposed to love. Sometimes protecting yourself means cutting off everyone you grew up with. Sometimes the only way to win is to walk away completely and build something new from the ashes of what they destroyed. And I'd won. Not because I'd gotten revenge or made them suffer, though they certainly did. I'd won because I was happy. Because I'd built a life I was proud of, surrounded by people who deserved to be in it. Because every morning, I woke up in my beautiful house, free from their manipulation and their demands and their endless taking. That's what triumph really looks like. Not crushing your enemies, but outliving their ability to hurt you. Not getting even, but getting free. So if you're facing something similar, if your family or friends are trying to tear you down, remember this: you don't owe anyone your well-being. You don't owe anyone your success, or your money, or your happiness. You don't owe anyone the right to make you smaller. Stand up for yourself. Protect what you've built. Find people who celebrate you instead of resent you. And know that on the other side of that fight, there's a life worth living. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who felt entitled to what you'd earned? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if it gave you hope or made you feel less alone in your own struggles, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and coming out stronger. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's struggling to protect themselves from toxic family dynamics. Your support means everything. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you find the strength to protect yourself and the courage to build the life you deserve. Take care of yourselves out there. And remember that you're worth fighting for.